We hear a lot of talk about the ecumenical movement.
Hello, Zero Books readers. It's me again, Douglas Lane. In this video, you'll be hearing from Brian Francis Culkin. He is the author of a book, The Meaning of Trump, and he'll be talking about whether or not Trump is some sort of fascist. So, for all the haters out there, you're not going to get to hate me this time, but, I'll be back.
Are you serious? Apologies for freedom. I can't handle this.
What we usually think of when we say the word fascism are the particular political movements that emerged in Europe during the 1930s, such as Mussolini in Italy, and of course, the Nazis in Germany. But what is fascism exactly? Fascism is a kind of ultra-nationalistic, reactionary politics that desires, first and foremost, some kind of return to law and order, some kind of return to a sense of national wholeness that is felt to have been lost. It is a political movement that seeks to impose socio-economic order under some kind of singular cultural or even genetic banner. The second point of fascism is the direct control of society by the state, a kind of totalitarianism in which the citizens are expected to have unwavering loyalty. But what is often conveniently left out when analyzing the rise of fascism is how it is brought forth, as a rule almost, by the preceding failures of free market capitalism itself, by the inability of capitalism to effectively regulate itself. The rise of the Nazi Party was directly related to the multiple failures of capitalism. The cultural shock that followed from the mass industrialization of the European economy, the failure in reorganizing German debt after World War I, and from capitalism's inability to effectively regulate the European powers in their various colonialisms around the world. But rather than critiquing capitalism, rather than locating the problem as being a result of the objective failures of capitalism, fascism essentially doubles down and proposes a solution that still exists within the capitalist horizon. This is why French philosopher Alain Badiou refers to fascism as being intra-capitalist, because he claims that fascism, quote, proposes no other structure of the world. It is not so much that fascism regulates capitalism. It is more the fact that under fascism, capitalism and the state become united under a singular banner. If anything, the basic drive of capitalism becomes even more pathological within fascism. But fascism is not strictly a political movement. It is also a kind of subjectivity, a way of being in the world, as aptly demonstrated when we say this or that person is a fascist. In this sense, a fascist is somebody who is so deeply disappointed in the state of Western society and culture that they then become its enemy. It is from this profound disappointment in free markets capitalism, inability to produce a horizon of meaning, that a kind of nihilism emerges that then gives rise to the fascist subjectivity. This kind of fascism forms an aggressive drive because it is based on a desire to destroy what it itself is immersed within and can no longer contain. This brings us to an obvious question regarding the state of contemporary global politics. Is Donald Trump a fascist? Let us examine a tweet that Donald Trump has been recently using as a template to endorse a series of Republican candidates in the upcoming midterm elections. X is strong on crime and borders, loves our military, our vets, and our Second Amendment. He has my full and total endorsement. The underlying message that sustains the content of this tweet is without question a feeling that evokes fascism, or at least something that is minimally fascist. The first thing we see is Trump's desire to secure the southern border through the construction of a wall, to metaphorically seal America away from the effects of global capitalist dynamics. The concrete effects of which are, of course, the surge of migration across the border, stemming from impoverished and politically unstable Central and Southern American countries. What we have here in Trump's tweet is a refusal to admit any problems with the capitalist horizon itself.
Let me make this an absolute fact. The goal is world peace. That must be our prime responsibility. We are the leader of the free world whether we want to be or not, and therefore we are the only ones that can preserve the peace. And to do that, we must have strength.
The second thing we see, which has been another key point of Trump's basic ideological stance, is the social elevation of the military, the continual placement of the military and the military-industrial complex on an irreproachable pedestal. But things get interesting in the third point, another key position of the Trump administration, when Trump lumps in the protection of the Second Amendment with the first 2 points. Contrary to popular belief, the Second Amendment in principle is perhaps the definition of an anti-fascist sentiment. Anti-fascist because the roots of the Second Amendment are structured precisely on a distance from the state, a distrust of the state, and even the potential to take up arms directly against the state, that is to say, against a potential fascism itself. So what we have here in Trump's tweet is a fundamental antagonism, a glitch, you could say, that can help us read the situation better and discern what is actually happening in American politics today. On one hand, it seems Trump, as both a singular personality and through his policies and rhetoric, is slowly inching towards something that can potentially be characterized as having fascist tendencies. But yet, on the other hand, such a textbook kind of fascism is occurring in a country in which such a possibility, the kind of unified expression of political sentiment that constitutes any fascism, is expressly difficult to occur. And not just because of something like the Second Amendment, but because of the rich and complex civil, cultural, and topographical diversity that constitutes the 50 different states of America. When the mainstream liberal left makes their now common reproach that Donald Trump is a fascist, what they are really missing, and what they oftentimes refuse to see, is the preceding factors that led up to such a political possibility that is now signified by Trump's flirtation with fascism. The 3-decade failure of neoliberalism and the technological-based, globalized capitalism that is both ideologically and materially constituted the horizon of meaning for both America and the vast majority of the world. To quote the Marxist philosopher Walter Benjamin, every rise of fascism bears witness to a failed revolution. What this means, in our case, is that the attempted revolution of neoliberalism over the past several decades has failed in ways that are almost impossible to describe. And what has followed in its wake is a reality television star who has fascist dreams.
mountains and the sand. Walk through the valleys and the rivers and the plains. Walk through the sun and walk through the rain. Here's a land full of power and glory, beauty that words cannot recall. Oh, her power shall rest on the strength of her freedom. Her glory shall rest on